Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on a story that has been in the news for the past 6 months, the shooting death of 31-year-old Dontre Hamilton. It happened at Milwaukee's Red Arrow Park on April 30th, and Dontre was living with a mental illness, and he slept in the park and ended up being shot 14 times by a Milwaukee police officer. That officer is Christopher Manning, who has since been fired, and the first Milwaukee officer in decades to actually face such discipline in an on-duty shooting. A series of events have led us to the conversation that we're about to have today. My first guests are family members of Dontre Hamilton who are fighting for justice in this case. His mother and brother, Maria and Nate Hamilton. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad to have you guys here because this is a story I think bothers a lot of people in our city because it's been 6 months, as I stated, and this is an ongoing scenario, not just in Milwaukee, but all across the country, of hearing about unarmed black men who are killed by law enforcement. And so seeing it happen time and time again, most recently the national story of 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. But during that same time that we saw protests happening in Missouri, you guys were here dealing with this scenario, so you know all too well what that pain and frustration feels like. So take us back, if you would, Nate, to the day you got the news that this had happened.
I received this news early morning, the following day. My brother and mom, they already knew about this information, but I came home and found out that my brother had, reached his fate by an officer shooting him. We were under the impression that it wasn't as many times, but once getting more involved, we found out that it was actually 14 shots and 15 wounds because he was shot in the thumb and it went through his thumb into his body. So just getting more details along the line by talking with the district attorney, it just seemed even more worse than what we imagined. So today we just go day after day, fighting for justice, trying to find different avenues to go down, to get answers, to find out how we can change these procedures that the police department is using on giving out information, and we want them to make sure they're doing it in a timely fashion. Like, it's been over 6 months.
Yeah.
So, it took that long just for him to fire this officer, but we still haven't got pictures of the officer released. It took almost 6 months, 5 months to get his name released. So it's just, I feel we're behind other cities like Ferguson. They let the ballistics out. They let the officer's name be known right away. So what's wrong with Milwaukee? What are we holding back? What is the police department holding back, I should say, as far as giving out this information? And we expect the law to be done swiftly and make sure that it's not biased, it's impartial. And as of yet, we feel like we've been betrayed by the city of Milwaukee. So I think there's so many answers, there's so many things that can be changed in the process.
Now, I did mention in the open that Dontre was living with a mental illness, schizophrenia, but he was described at the time of the incident as homeless and violent, and you had a real problem with that description.
Yeah. And we sat and we listened to the chief demonize Dontre and demolish his character. So at that point, we said, no, we're not going to stand for that. We know that Dontre had his own apartment. We know that Dontre was doing everything he possibly can do to provide for himself. His disability, and as far as the mental health, it didn't stop him from being a man, from making his own money, from making good decisions. It was just something that played on his mind at times. But Dontre was fully capable to act in this environment just like any other citizen. He possessed a car at one point until it broke down, so he was able to drive himself back and forth to work. It was so many things that he was able to do that they denied the public from knowing. So we want people to know that, yes, mental health is an issue, but everyone has a different level and have different needs to be met when it comes to mental health issues.
And it definitely doesn't mean there's a reason to die because you weren't on your medication and you were minding your business sleeping. It's no reason to die, that's for sure. Miss Maria, I don't want to forget about you over there.
Okay.
You actually moved your family from Gary, Indiana to escape growing gang violence at the time, and you taught your boys how to look out for each other and do the right thing. And here, ultimately, almost 20 years later, you're burying your son on your birthday.
Right.
No mother can imagine what that feels like.
Because I've made the choice to bring my children and my family to an environment where they can learn and grow and be responsible citizens. Yeah, it is hurtful to know that one of my kids was taken by gun violence, and it was by public safety, someone that was supposed to protect and serve them. We were raised in a family that had respect for the system that we lived in by us living in Gary, because we always had a stigma because we came from Gary, and there was so much violence and killing and murdering in the city. I didn't want my kids to have to live like that. I didn't want them to be numbers in society that wasn't recognized as human beings. I don't feel that we are being recognized as human, caring people in the city of Milwaukee by this tragedy happened to my son.
Wow. Now, I did say that I don't think there's any mother out there who can imagine or who even wants to imagine what it's like to lose their child. So what you're doing now is you're organizing a support group for women whose sons have died in police shootings or while in police custody. Tell us more about that.
Mothers for Justice, I decided to form it because I sat for 2 months alone in a shell, not knowing who to turn to or if people would be sympathetic to me having a son that was grown killed like that, because so many of our younger kids are dying, and those mothers got no justice. I decided to form this group so we can support those that don't have immediate family right at their beck and call. Also, to heal. We both have the same heart, have the same hurt in our hearts, so we can actually reach out to each other. So I want this circle to be support for these mothers. I want them to feel as though they can come, they can talk about their concerns, what they may be going through with the family members that may be suffering from the hurt and not getting the justice, because it's a lot of anger involved.
Yeah.
When you're totally disrespected and you feel as though you don't matter.
Yeah. So how can women who have been through this particular scenario join this support group where you can be there for each other?
On November the 15th, I'm having the first invite to a tea party for Mothers for Justice. There'll be a minister there. Lena Taylor is one of the speakers. To let them know if there's programs out there that we have information provided for them. We also have care counseling, and care counseling are different remembrance on whether it be a card or a telephone number or a service that they can reach out to when they're having a bad day.
I love that. So they'll actually reach out to the Coalition for Justice to get more information on that.
To get more information, we're going to do an invite at the mass meeting tomorrow and at all the events leading up to the Tea Party, and I will hand deliver all the invitations to any mothers that are actually interested in being involved with our circle.
We'll put the phone number on the screen, 414-375-9330. And again, that's for the Coalition for Justice. Call there if you want more information on this support group. And I think it's great what you're doing. Nate, a lot has happened. I'll try to put it all in order. Since Dontre's death, your family and a group of supporters, you've had ongoing protests. And most recently, you had a town hall forum with several local organizations like the Urban League and the NAACP. What came from that forum?
That forum was great to bring people together to talk about the issues. As a black community, we look for more from our black communities, more support from our leaders, black leaders, to stand up. And that day was them coming out. They were sharing the statements that that they brought forth from the NAACP. They had a statement that they put out about this case. Dontre Hamilton, he talked about some different things that he felt could be changed. And we basically went and said, hey, let's look into some things dealing with the Fire Police Commission. Let's look into some things dealing with the legislative law, the practices and procedures of the police department, and see what we can do. So right now we're working on looking into the park report to see how in depth we can get into that, making sure that we know it well, and that we know actually what the actual job of the Fire Police Commission is. So when they do try to go hire this officer back, we're able to say, no, this is why you can't, or these are this is the authority that they have, so they can say no. Instead of feeling bullied by the union, they have the authority to say no. So on top of that, it's just making sure that we are connecting the dots along the way as far as gaining unity through the black community mostly, because for so long I think we went without a voice. So we lost our voice, we lost our fight.
Well, when people don't understand completely how the law is set up and those things, people kind of they give up and they accept the circumstances. And like I said, you've refused to do that. You're being proactive, and I think that's awesome. Before we run out of time, it was October 15th that Christopher Manning was shot. Who shot the officer that shot your brother. He was fired by Police Chief Ed Flynn. He filed for disability 2 days before he was fired, and he has since filed for an appeal, as you mentioned. What's interesting to me is that the chief didn't fire him because of excessive use of force, but for not following proper procedure when approaching someone that he assumes was mentally ill. So with that, and the police union giving the chief a no confidence vote because he fired Manning, what does all these things bring to your mind?
I've been saying this for a while, but we have no confidence in our authority figures here in Milwaukee. And this just shows, like, even within the union, with them fighting for an officer who shot a man 14 times, who actually went and violated his rights first of all, and said, hey, I'm gonna pat you down regardless if it's legal or not, because I feel like you're a threat to me, after 2 officers had approached Dontre already saying that he wasn't a threat. An officer just felt, hey, he's a threat. I'm gonna make him a threat. And within doing that, he violated his rights. And now they're saying that he had the right to shoot and kill him, but did Dontre have the right to defend himself against what you can say a rogue officer who had 5 violations of excessive force, other complaints of being uncharacteristic as a police officer? So when you look at his past, it led up to him shooting the man 14 times. And you have a union standing behind that. You have a chief standing behind the excessive force. He think that was necessary. But did Dontre have the right to protect himself? Can we protect ourselves as citizens against the police department when they're breaking our rights and violating our constitutional rights? So it goes a lot deeper than what we know as of yet, but it's been happening for so long with the police violating our rights that people don't know when to say something, who's going to believe them, because you have to face due process.
Yeah, or if it falls on deaf ears, that's what it seems has happened in many scenarios. Miss Maria, with all that's been going on, have you truly had a chance to mourn your son?
No, I haven't. And I just want to clear the fact that a mentally ill man was killed that showed no signs of being mentally ill. Mm-hmm. I'm Dontre Hamilton at that park. Mm-hmm. And the way that he was approached the third time, it was not humanly decent. Mm-hmm. I believe that the officer showed more mental distress than I could even imagine Dontre gave him to actually harass him at that park. Mm. He was totally harassed for no reason other than being black and being in that park and him assuming Dontre was homeless.
Because he was sleeping.
Because he was sleeping in the park. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's the misdirection where everybody is saying is mentally ill, that he was a mentally ill person. He was a person in the park, not homeless, not mental, not hurting anyone.
In a public park.
In a public park where he's been going for, I want to say the better half of 20 years.
Oh, wow.
On a regular basis. Mm-hmm. We wasn't really bothered by him telling his brother 15 minutes prior to that he was in the park. That wasn't anything abnormal.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense. So we have run out of time. Nate, quickly, if you can tell me, your brother, Damian Perkins, mm-hmm. and you've written a song that expresses your grief, your anger, and your frustration, and we'll give the viewers at home a chance to listen to a little bit of it as we go to break. But tell us about that song and how they can hear it and get it.
We're working on putting the song out there on the internet right now and doing a video for it. Mm-hmm. But the song came strictly from us sitting in the living room and just having a love for Dontre and wanting to express that in some way. And we both do music. He's a songwriter. I play the guitar a bit. But we just felt like let's come up with something to express ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be something that we liked and a lot of other people has liked so far. So we just want to continue to express ourselves to get through the anger, to get through the grief, find some type of outsource to put our energy into and make sure it's positive.
Music has a way of doing that.
Yeah, and we just want to be positive and represent who we know Dontre was to be, and that's a good brother. So we can't do anything but be the same.
Yes, and I should mention you ultimately want Christopher Manning to be criminally charged for the murder of Dontre, and you also are waiting for more answers from the district attorney, John Chisholm, on an indication of whether or not that will happen. So we will keep everybody up to date, and you guys are welcome to come back and give us updates on the things that you're doing, and I will continue to keep you and your family in my prayers.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all for your time, and we will take a listen to that song when we return to our Issues Milwaukee. We'll find out more about the nation's largest mental health organization that's dedicated to improving the lives of those living with serious mental illness. We'll learn more about the National Alliance on Mental Illness, known as NAMI Greater Milwaukee, right after this.
Dream about you daily. Tears keep streaming, going crazy. I need you here, I want you here.